Hello, my name is Emma, and in today's video, we are going to practice pronunciation. We're going to look at a spelling that many learners have difficulty pronouncing. So what spelling is that? It's the spelling of O-U-G-H. I have many students who get scared when they see O-U-G-H. When they see this, they think, I don't know how to pronounce O-U-G-H. And why do they think this? Well, it's because there are different ways to pronounce this spelling. The spelling and the pronunciation do not match. So in today's video, we're going to talk about some words that have O-U-G-H. The words we're going to talk about today are common words in English that you will probably use, and we're going to talk about how we pronounce these words. So, to get started, let's look at a couple of different words that have O-U-G-H in them, and I want you to just listen carefully to the pronunciation. I want you to listen and think, do we pronounce these words the same way or different ways? Do we pronounce O-U-G-H the same way every time? Or do you hear multiple pronunciations? So let's get started. This word is bought, though, cough, enough. I'll say this one again because I said it in a little strange voice. Enough. Through, drought. So you might have noticed that we're using different vowel sounds. Sometimes we have an F sound. There's a lot going on with these words with pronunciation, but they are not all pronounced in the same way. In fact, I just pronounced O-U-G-H in 6 different ways. So in English, there's a bit of a controversy as to how many ways can you pronounce O-U-G-H. Some people say in North American English there are 7 ways or maybe 8 ways. Some people, when they talk about British English, they say there might be 9 ways. Well, I'm going to make it easier for you. In general, there are 6 important ways. And why do I say these 6 ways are important? Well, it's because these are the 6 ways you might actually use. You might actually see a word that has one of these 6 pronunciations. So even though there are more pronunciations, a lot of O-U-G-H words are older words that we don't use anymore. So I'm going to teach you the O-U-G-H words that actually will matter to you and that are common. Okay? So let's get started by learning about words that have O-U-G-H-T in them. Okay, so what is the first way we can pronounce O-U-G-H? We can pronounce O-U-G-H like an ah sound. So if you think about the word jaw or law, we have that ah sound in it. We can pronounce O-U-G-H like an ah. And notice there's no G in that, so the G is a silent letter. So let's look at some common words where you might hear this ah sound in it. Probably the most common that my students use is the word bought. Bought is the past tense of the verb to buy. So I can say, I like to buy books. Yesterday, I bought a book. So again, you'll see that it has the O-U-G-H spelling. For some of you, it might be helpful to write out how you might pronounce this word. So I've done that down here, B-A-W-T, bought. So this is the pronunciation, and this is the correct spelling. Again, it is the past tense of the verb to buy. Now, I have here another word that actually has a bit of a different spelling. It's A-U-G-H. But I'm going to include it today because it also has this ah sound in it. And that is the word taught. Taught is the past tense of teach. So for any of you who are teachers, this is an important word. I use this every day because I am a teacher, and every day I teach. So yesterday, I taught some students English. So taught is the past tense of teach, and it rhymes with bought. So if I wanted to write this out the way to pronounce it, I'd write T-A-W-T, taught. Now we have the next word, fought. Fought is the past tense of fight. So sometimes we talk about people are in a fight. The past of that is fought. Again, it has an F-A-W-T sound, fought. All of these rhyme, bought, taught, fought, because they all have that strong ah sound in them. Okay, the next word, thought. This is another common word. Do you know what this is the past tense of? It's the past tense of the verb to think. So right now, I'm thinking about eating for some reason. I'm thinking about English. But yesterday, I thought about grammar. So we can use the word thought to talk about the past. This word is less common. So I would say that if you need to remember words today, really focus on these words. But this is also a word you might see in English. It's the past tense of the word to seek. Seek is another way to say look for something. When you seek something, you look for something. But this is a bit of a formal word. You might hear it in the game hide and seek. So seek is a verb in English, but it's not so common. But the past tense of the verb seek is sought. So again, it has that ah sound to it, sought. So I've written it down here, S-A-W-T. Now, I have another word that has that ah sound, and that's the word ought. Ought means should. It's very similar to should. I ought to do my homework. I should do my homework. But in terms of how frequently we use the word ought, in North America, it is not such a common word. I think it is more common in England or Britain. But in North America, you can use it, but it's not the most common word. Should is a lot more common. But again, this has the same pronunciation, ah. So it has that ought sound to it. Okay, so again, the first way to pronounce O-U-G-H is ah. Now let's look at another way to pronounce O-U-G-H. Okay, so now let's look at some other common words that have that O-U-G-H spelling. So we have here the word though. Notice how I'm pronouncing the O-U-G-H in this word, though. It sounds just like the letter O or the O-E in toe. So O-U-G-H sometimes is pronounced like O. What are some other words that have this pronunciation? We have although, thorough, and dough. So thorough is, it describes a way of doing things. When we do things thoroughly, it means we do them very carefully and diligently, and we spend a lot of time on something. Although and though are transition words, so we often use these in writing. And then we have the word dough. Dough is the, when we make bread or cookies or cake, we often talk about dough. So that's the cake or the cookies or the bread before we bake it. We call that pre-baked dough. So again, all of these have that O sound, and all of these are common words in English. Now we have another word here that has a different way to pronounce O-U-G-H, and that's the word through. through. So notice how I'm pronouncing OUGH in this word. It's like an OO sound, through. It rhymes with you, through. And it's like the O in boot, through. So sometimes when we talk about drive-throughs, we're now actually using a different spelling. This is actually the original spelling. When we're talking about drive-throughs, we've actually changed the word. We're spelling it like this to show the pronunciation. But in general, we're still using the word through with this spelling, T-H-R-O-U-G-H. So that's the third way to pronounce O-U-G-H, like a OO sound. Now let's look at some other ways to pronounce O-U-G-H. Okay, so let's look at the third common way of pronouncing O-U-G-H. We have here the word tough, enough, rough. So in this case, O-U-G-H has an F sound. You wouldn't know this because there is no F in the spelling, but in the pronunciation, there is an F. So we pronounce this like uff, uff. So it has a short vowel at the beginning, and it sounds like the word cuff. If you look at my sleeve, this part of my sleeve is called a cuff. These words all have that uff pronunciation, like cuff. So again, it might be helpful to write down the pronunciation of this word if it helps you remember it. So for example, instead of O-U-G-H, I might write down T-U-F-F. That's how I would pronounce it, tough. Tough means difficult. When something is tough, it is difficult. Tough is a very common English word that you should know. Another important English word that has O-U-G-H is enough. Enough is used a lot. We often talk about, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough laundry, whatever. You can think of many examples with enough. And when we talk about enough, we're talking about the quantity of something. Do we have a good amount of quantity or not enough of something? So O-U-G-H, again, is pronounced like uff, in enough. We have another word here, rough. Rough it has different meanings in English. It has an O-U-G-H, and it has this uff sound to it. Rough means the opposite of smooth. So if you think about somebody's face, for example, if someone has a beard and you touch their face is rough because they have hair. If someone has no hair on their face, we can say it's very smooth. So rough has different meanings in English. This is one example of what rough means. Okay, so now let's look at another way to pronounce O-U-G-H. I have here drought. It takes me a moment sometimes to look at this word and to remember the pronunciation. The word is drought, drought. So, and then we have plow, drought and plow. These words have an ow sound in them, similar to the word cow, ow. So we have drought and plow. So what do these words mean? Well, drought is an important word. It means there's not enough rain for a period of time. So if there's no rain and there's a month or 2 months that goes by without rain, we call that a drought. This is becoming an important word nowadays because of global warming. And many countries now have droughts, so it's a good word to know. Plow is a farming word. When we use a plow, it's a type of machine we use on farmland. We call that a plow, and we can also use this as a verb. We plow the land. So if you are interested in farming, or in agriculture, this might be a good word to know. Okay, so we've done UGH and OUGH. Now let's look at the last pronunciation we're going to talk about today, and that is OFF, like in cough. So cough, again, there's this F sound, but we don't see it in the spelling. When we cough, we go, that's a cough. So again, you have OUGH, but the pronunciation is like off, cough. So just to remind you, we've just looked at 6 different pronunciations of OUGH. I've picked some very common words that have OUGH in them because I think you should focus on the common words first. So that is one of my tips. Learn the common keywords in English with OUGH. There are many OUGH words in English, but we don't use some of them, so you don't need to learn them. For example, tough, it's a word we use a lot. I recommend learning this word. We have here another word, sloth. I don't think I have ever used this word in my life. So even though it exists, I understand the meaning, I don't actually use this word frequently. So focus on the OUGH words that you will use in your everyday life and memorize the pronunciation of those. How will you know how to pronounce these words? Well, one recommendation is you can always Google the pronunciation. If you type in the word in Google and pronunciation, you can actually see how to say these words. So that's one recommendation. Especially, we've covered some words here, but maybe you come across another word in the future. So that might be one way to help you. My other tip is remember, there are different ways to pronounce OUGH. There are different ways, but I would say that there are 6 very important pronunciations. There are 9 in total, depending on who you talk to, but I would say 6 are very important and very common examples of pronunciation. Again, I am a North American. My accent is North American, so this might be a little bit different in England, but from a North American pronunciation perspective, there are 6 major pronunciations of OUGH. Okay, so we've covered a lot in this video. Now I'd like to invite you to come check out our website at www.engvid.com. There you can actually take a quiz to practice what you learned today. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel where I have a lot more resources on learning English, how to study, pronunciation, and a lot of other things related. Check out my website at www.teacheremma.com for more free resources and to learn about my English club. Thanks for watching.